There is a school of not so much political science as sort of political pseudoscience that says what the price of gas is determines what happens in our national elections. Now, it is not necessarily true. It's the kind of correlation that sounds really compelling, but the more facts you look at, the correlation is not really borne out over time. Still, everybody says sometimes that it's true. It's one of those things that gets passed on as if it is a political science truth that people like to believe in, whether or not it is true. And in Newt Gingrich's slow run at the presidency this year, it seems like Mr. Gingrich maybe got enamored with that old fake political science wives' tale. I think he thought he could reverse engineer it even by making his presidential campaign about gas prices for a while, thereby creating the impression among voters that gas prices might go down under him if he were elected president. I think that was Mr. Gingrich's planned road to the White House for a while. That road did not actually lead to the White House. It did not even lead to a Fox News gig, apparently. What is Newt Gingrich doing now, anyway? Gas prices are not just politically salient because of those cockamamie theories. Gas prices are politically salient because they are so salient to our economy. More than any other traded commodity, the price of gas has a direct impact on how much pocket change Americans have to save or spend on anything else.
People are not happy this morning. Now, gas prices are going up once again. In fact, many people are flocking to places like this Arco here in Davis to try to find the cheapest gas prices around. Right now, a gallon of unleaded is going to cost you $4.13. Last week, gas jumped as much as 16 cents at many gas stations in California, and prices are expected to go up another 20 cents in the next few days.
Gas prices go up and down, right? There's supply and demand. But every once in a while, like you saw in that report there's a really dramatic spike. The weird thing about that particular gas price spike in May that sparked that news report was that gas price spike was really isolated. Gas prices went way up in California, even as gas prices everywhere else were going down. And at the same time that gas prices were going way up in California, crude oil prices were going down. And even weirder, gas inventories were plentiful. Gas inventories were going up. There was more supply. There was a lot of gas around. So then why would it be getting more expensive? What we were told is that it was refineries. Refineries were the problem.
Last week, gas jumped as much as 16 cents at many gas stations in California, and prices are expected to go up another 20 cents in the next few days. A petroleum analyst says refineries are at its lowest level in 20 years, and several California facilities that make clean-burning gas are also dealing with repairs and maintenance issues.
Repairs and maintenance issues at the refineries. So crude oil prices are down, plenty of gas around in inventories, but these refineries, California refineries, were not working at capacity because of repairs and maintenance issues, and so California was getting a giant price spike. The biggest gasoline market in the nation had its prices going way up. They're going down everywhere else, but up in California. That's what we were told. It's the refineries. And there was no real reason to question it when we were told that, right? Because this sort of thing has happened before. A Chevron refinery in Richmond, California, caught fire in 1989. Flames shot 100 feet in the air. 7 people were injured. Gas prices in the area spiked right away, and people blamed the fire. The fire slowed supplies to retailers by 25%. Gas prices in California went up. Refinery goes down, prices go up. March 1999, same refinery, another huge explosion. It was the second refinery fire in the state that month. And you guessed it, after that conflagration, gas prices went up in California. Of course they did. Just this past August, same refinery in Richmond, California, caught on fire. Nobody was killed, thank goodness, but people in the area were told to stay inside their homes with their doors and their windows closed. Drivers were told to close their windows too. 4 train stations were shut down. And you guessed it, gas prices went up. You notice a trend here? That one refinery, that Chevron refinery in Richmond that has spent the last 25 years catching on fire over and over and over again, that is one of the refineries that we were told in May with that mysterious price spike. We were told in May that that refinery was offline. So, that's why we had the price spike. The other one was this one, the Royal Dutch Shell refinery in Martinez, California. We were told they were offline for maintenance. And so these 2 refineries being down, well, obviously, then your prices are going to go up. That's what drove up the gas price in California, despite all the other factors saying that prices shouldn't have gone up. That was in May. And people in California were obviously prepared to accept that explanation. History had prepared us to accept that explanation. However, check this out. Earlier this month, McClatchy News Service got its hand on a report that looked at environmental documents, thousands of environmental documents from the point in time when those refineries were supposedly offline, down for maintenance work, right? Well, here's how McClatchy describes the report's findings. This is amazing. Quote, in May, at a time when Royal Dutch Shell's plant was reported to be down for maintenance for 2 weeks, it appears to have been making gasoline for at least half that time, state environmental records show. Nitrogen oxide emissions had returned to normal at the refinery a full week before it was reported to have come back online. Really? Similarly, Chevron's Richmond refinery was reported down for maintenance for 2 weeks in May, right? That's what we were told. But emissions data suggests the refinery never ceased operation. Shell's refinery in Martinez and Chevron's refinery in Richmond, they were supposedly offline, not making anything, so gas prices had to go up. But at least one report concludes, actually, they were up and running. What, they just didn't want to say so? Everybody knows how supply and demand works. But in this case, if supply and demand do not explain what was going on here, that's a scandal that had a huge economic impact. Were the refinery companies lying about this just to boost prices up and pocket the difference? Does this happen all over the country? What's going on here? And what tools do we have to figure it out if we are being suckered? Turns out we do have a tool. It lives in the Department of Justice. 6 Western senators are now calling on the Department of Justice to conduct a refinery by refinery investigation of what happened during that gas price spike in May and another one that happened in October. Is the energy industry snookering us? And will they get caught if they are? Joining us now for the interview is Senator Maria Cantwell from Washington State. She's chair of the Senate Subcommittee on Energy. She's been leading the charge for calling for this investigation here. Senator Cantwell, it's nice to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Rachel.
Let me ask, in my layman's summary of that discussion, both the supply and demand factors at work, but also what might have happened around May and that environmental report. Did I get the basics of that right? Is that basically the situation?
Rachel, I am convinced that Matto matters, that you drill down on the substance of these issues, and that's exactly what we need the Department of Justice to do.
What was it about the price spike in May and then again in October that seemed suspicious to you? Was there something that tipped you off to start questioning whether or not that was a legitimate price spike just explained by supply and demand?
Well, my constituents tipped me off that they were frustrated that gas was going towards $5, and what they knew is that one refinery went down, but why was everybody else saying that they were offline? Or a lot of the market response basically saying the price spike was caused by a shortage. Well, you outlined how inventories and supply were there, so supply and demand didn't seem to really be the issue. So our question is this: did these entities create the perception of an artificial shortage and thereby drive up the price of gasoline? That's what we want the Department of Justice to investigate. We want the FTC and the Department of Justice to be the policeman on the beat on something so important as gas. As you said, it's like the lifeblood of an economy, and if you affect it by that price spike, it really does affect day-to-day consumers and our economy and jobs and everything else.
Do you believe that the Department of Justice is capable of mounting this investigation in a rigorous way? Do they have the tools that they need? Do they have a track record of investigating stuff like this well?
They do have the tools they need, and why we're asking the Department of Justice to be involved now, in addition to the FTC, is that the investigative arm of the Department of Justice can marry up with the regulatory authorities that agencies like the Commodities Future Trading Commission have, or other agencies, and do a comprehensive approach to get all of the data. And yes, this task force existed before when it tried to tackle the Enron problem, another area of energy, electricity, but an area where we saw a lot of the same schemes being perpetrated on the public, by people moving supply around or creating images about supply that really weren't true. And in this case, it appears that there's some evidence that we want them to investigate. The fact that while they said they were down, emissions were still coming out of some of these facilities, which would lead you to believe that they were actually producing supply.
We contacted the Western States Petroleum Association today to get their response to this, to the McClatchy report, and also to this call for an investigation. They told us if the Department of Justice or any other agency elects to investigate gas markets on the West Coast, we are confident the investigation will reach the same conclusion that dozens of other investigations over the past 2 decades have reached, that gasoline and diesel prices on the West Coast are determined principally by supply and demand. They also said, the author of the report, who I cited in my introduction here, they said that he is not an expert in the oil industry and clearly does not understand refinery operations. His report contains many suspicions and theories, but does not prove anything. Let me just get your response to that remark from the Western States Petroleum Association.
Well, there's a lot to cover there, and let me just say this, that there is a new law on the books of the last few years that basically says that it is against the law to have any manipulative devices or contrivances as it relates to moving oil supply. This is a relatively new statute. It's not the issue of whether the oil companies got together in an antitrust conspiracy to set pricing. This is about whether somebody, as I was saying before, created the image of an artificial shortage just to drive up price. And the reason why that law was passed is because we saw too much going on in our energy markets, something that is so critical to our economy, that we wanted to have a tougher regulation on the books. So this authority has been used in electricity and natural gas, and a federal agency overseeing those entities have instigated over 107 cases and have had hundreds of millions of dollars of fines against companies who have had bad practices. So we're asking that the FTC and the DOJ use the power that is in current statute, although relatively new, to do the same kind of policing in these energy markets. And to Mr. McCullough in Oregon, we couldn't thank him enough in the Northwest, because when the federal entities in charge of electricity failed to investigate fully the Enron case, Mr. McCullough provided crucial evidence by investigating tapes and documentation on behalf of our utilities in the Northwest that proved successful in saving our consumers over $1 billion. So I could tell you he's done great work before, and he's the first to admit that what we really need now is the Department of Justice to use their full power and get to the bottom of this.
Senator Maria Cantwell from Washington State, chair of the Senate Subcommittee on Energy. Thank you for helping us understand this. Please keep us apprised as this moves forward. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks. I should also